The lounge was silent. Not peaceful. Silent. There's a difference. In Seoul's Yongsan district, beneath a restaurant that served oxbone soup to tourists, there was a room where silence meant power, where men sat with their hands folded and their phones face down, where the air smelled like leather and cigars that cost more than most people earned in a month. No music played, no one spoke unless spoken to, and no one ever brought a child past the steel door until tonight. She stumbled in like a ghost, small, shaking, blood smeared across her knees. Her sneakers squeaked against the marble floor. Every head turned. 15 men, all armed, all waiting. The girl didn't stop. She walked straight through the center of the room, past the bar where crystal glasses sat untouched, past the booth where a briefcase full of cash lay open, past the guards who reached for their weapons but didn't draw. She stopped in front of a man sitting alone in the corner. He wore a black suit, no tie. His shirt was unbuttoned just enough to show the edge of a tattoo, a broken compass inked across his collarbone in faded blue. His name was Yunj Kwan, and he hadn't looked up once. The girl grabbed his sleeve. Her fingers were small, trembling. "They're hurting my mom," her voice cracked. "Please, before we continue, if you like intense, emotional stories that keep you guessing, subscribe and like this video. Now, let's dive in." The room held its breath. Yunj still didn't move. One of his men stepped forward. "Sir, I'll remove her." "Stop." The word was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. Yunj finally looked up. His eyes were dark, unreadable. He studied the girl the way a predator studies prey, not with cruelty, but with calculation. She didn't flinch. Most adults did. "How did you get in here?" he asked. "I followed the man with the red jacket." "Where is he now?" "Outside. He didn't see me." Yunj's jaw tightened. He glanced at the man who'd spoken earlier. "Seal the building. No one leaves. No one enters." "Sir?" "Now." The man hesitated, then bowed and left. Yunj returned his attention to the girl. She was maybe 7 years old, dark skin, braided hair pulled into 2 puffs. Her shirt had cartoon stars on it, now stained with dirt and something darker. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lena." "Lena what?" "Hale." "American." That explained the accent. "Where's your mother, Lena?" "They took her." "Who?" "I don't know. Men. A lot of them." "Where?" She pulled something from her pocket. A folded piece of paper. She didn't hand it over, just held it. Yunj noticed. "Smart." "You drew that?" he asked. She nodded. "Why?" "Mom told me to. She said if something bad happened, I should remember everything." Yunj leaned back. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen. A message. 3 words. "She's asking questions." He didn't respond. Instead, he stood. The men in the room straightened. Yunj was not a tall man, but when he moved, the air shifted. He knelt in front of Lena, eye to eye. "Your mother, what does she do?" "She works with ships." "What kind of ships?" "Big ones. She says she helps them go where they need to go." "Logistics." Yunj's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "And you came here because—" "Mom said if I ever needed help and she wasn't there, I should find someone who looked like they were in charge, someone people were scared of." "You think I'm scary?" She hesitated. "A little." "Good." He stood. "Seok-jun." A man stepped forward from the shadows, broad shoulders, scar across his left eyebrow. "Take her to the back room. Keep the door locked. No one goes in or out except me." "Yes, sir." Lena didn't move. "What about my mom?" Yunj looked at her. For a long moment he said nothing, then he spoke. Quiet. Steady. "I'll find her." Lena studied his face. Then she nodded. Seok-jun held out his hand. She took it. As they walked toward the back, Yunj pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. It rang twice. "I need a location," he said. "American woman, late 30s, works logistics for the southern port routes. Last known location was—" He paused. Looked at the door Lena had disappeared through. "Unknown, but someone wanted her quiet." He hung up. Another call. This one didn't ring. A voice answered immediately. "You broke your own rule." Yunj's jaw tightened. "She's a child." "You don't do this. You never do this." "I know." "Then why?" "Because she walked into my club bleeding and asked for help." Silence on the other end, then, "This is going to cost you." "I know." The line went dead. Unjae slipped the phone into his pocket. He walked to the window. Outside, Seoul glittered. Neon signs, traffic, life. But down here, in the dark, there were different rules. And tonight, he'd just broken the most important one. He didn't know why. Not yet. But something about that girl, her steady hands, her clear eyes, the way she didn't beg, it reminded him of someone he couldn't save. His hand drifted to his collarbone, to the tattoo, the broken compass, a reminder that some directions once lost can never be found again. But maybe, just maybe, this time could be different. Francisca Hale had been missing for 11 hours. Unjae learned this from a man who owed him 3 favors and a shipping container full of electronics he'd never reported stolen. The call came through at 2:47 a.m. She clocked out at 6 yesterday evening. Security footage shows her walking to the employee lot. After that, nothing. Her car? Still there, keys inside. Yunj ended the call. He stood in his office now, 3 floors above the lounge. The room was sparse. A desk, 2 chairs, a wall of glass overlooking the Han River. No photos, no personal items, just files, numbers, routes. He pulled up her employment record. Francisca Hale, 38, American citizen, degree in supply chain management from Howard University. Moved to Seoul 4 years ago. Single mother, no criminal record. But that wasn't what made her valuable. It was the routes. She'd worked for 3 shipping companies in 2 years. Each time, she'd been hired to optimize container flow. Through Busan and Incheon ports, she knew which inspectors could be bribed, which routes avoided cameras, which warehouses had blind spots in their inventory systems. She knew too much, and someone wanted what she knew. Unjae's phone buzzed. A message from Seok-jun. "The girl's awake. She's asking for you." He pocketed the phone and walked downstairs. The back room was smaller than a closet. A single chair, a cot, a lamp. Lena sat on the cot with her knees pulled to her chest. She'd washed the blood off her legs. Someone had given her a blanket. She looked up when he entered. "Did you find her?" "Not yet." Her face didn't change. She'd expected that answer. "Can I see the drawing?" Unjae asked. She unfolded the paper slowly. It was detailed, too detailed for a child. A warehouse, 4 loading docks, 2 main entrances, guard stations marked with X's, timing notes written in the margins in handwriting that wasn't hers. Guard change, 8 p.m. Bathroom break, 9:30. Cameras face parking lot, not doors. Yunjae studied it. "Your mother taught you this?" "She said I should always know where the exits are." "Why?" Lena looked at him. "Because bad things happen when you don't." Unjae crouched down. "How did you memorize this?" "Mom took me there once. She said we were playing a game. I had to count the doors and remember where the lights were. Then we went home and I drew it." "When was this?" 2 weeks ago." 2 weeks. Francisca had known. She'd known someone would come for her. And she'd prepared her daughter. Not to fight. To survive. Unjae stood. "I'm going to find her," he said again. This time, Lena's voice was smaller. "What if you don't?" He didn't answer. Because the truth was something she already knew. By dawn, Unjae had 3 leads. The first came from a dock worker who'd seen a black van near the employee lot around 6:15 p.m. The second came from a warehouse supervisor who reported unusual activity in District 7, a section controlled by Chairman Ro's people. The third came from Seok-jun. He walked into Yunjae's office without knocking. "We have a problem." Yunjae didn't look up from the map spread across his desk. "Speak." "Ro's men are asking questions about you. About why you're looking for an American woman." "Let them ask. They know about the girl." Now Unjae looked up. Seok-jun shifted his weight. "Someone talked. I don't know who, but word's out that you're protecting a child. Ro thinks it's leverage. It's not. He doesn't care what it is. He just knows you broke protocol." Unjae's expression didn't change, but his hand curled into a fist. "Send a message to Ro. Tell him if he touches the girl, I'll burn every warehouse he owns." Seok-jun hesitated. "That's a declaration." "I know. You're willing to start a war over this?" Unjae met his eyes. "I'm willing to finish one." Seok-jun nodded slowly. Then he left, but as the door closed, Unjae saw something. A flicker, just for a second. Seokjun's hand had gone to his pocket, and his phone had lit up. Lena was sitting in the same position when Yunj returned, but now she was holding something. A small bracelet, woven thread, red and yellow. "I made it," she said. "For my mom. For her birthday." Yunj said nothing. "Do you have kids?" she asked. "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't." She looked at him. "My mom says people who say because I don't are people who don't want to talk about it." Yunj almost smiled. Almost. "Your mom's smart." "I know." She set the bracelet down. "If you find her, will you give this to her?" "You'll give it to her yourself." Lena nodded, but she didn't believe him. Yunj could see it in her eyes. She'd already started preparing for the worst, just like her mother taught her. At 9 a.m., Yunj received a location, District 7, Warehouse 14B, the same one from Lena's. Drawing. He called his driver to, get the car ready. "How many men?" "Just me?" "Sir, just me." He hung up. Then he opened his desk drawer. Inside was a gun he hadn't touched in 3 years. He checked the clip. Full. He slid it into his jacket. As he walked toward the door, his phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "You should have stayed out of this." Yunj stared at the screen. Then he deleted it and walked out into the morning light. Behind him, in the back room, Lena sat alone, holding a bracelet, waiting for a mother who might never come home. The warehouse smelled like rust and diesel fuel. Francisca sat in a metal chair, hands zip-tied behind her back. Her lip was split. Dried blood streaked down her chin, but her eyes were calm. 3 men stood around her. A 4th leaned against the wall, smoking. Chairman Rowe sat across from her on an overturned crate. He was older than she expected. Gray hair, expensive watch, the kind of man who looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a warehouse. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. Francisca didn't respond. "I don't want to hurt you. I just want access codes, port manifests, the routes your companies use to move containers without inspection." "I don't have access anymore." "You're lying." "I was fired 2 months ago." Rowe smiled. "We both know that's not true. You still consult. Freelance. 3 different firms pay you under the table." Francisca met his gaze. "If you know so much, why do you need me?" "Because the codes change weekly, and you're the only one who knows the rotation schedule." She said nothing. Rowe stood. He walked closer. "Your daughter is safe. For now." Francisca's jaw tightened, just slightly. But Rowe saw it. "You didn't think we knew about her?" "You're bluffing." "Am I?" He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. Lena, asleep on a cot, blanket pulled up to her chin. Francisca's breathing quickened. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter?" "If you touch her, then give me what I want." Francisca stared at the photo. Her daughter. Alone. She closed her eyes. "The codes reset every Sunday at midnight. You need admin clearance and a physical token to access the system. I don't have either anymore." "You're lying again." "I'm not." Rowe nodded to one of his men. The man stepped forward and backhanded her across the face. Her head snapped to the side. Blood dripped onto the concrete. But when she looked back up, her expression hadn't changed. "You can hit me all you all want," she said quietly. "It won't change the truth." Rowe studied her. Then he turned to the man by the wall. "Bring the toolkit." The man crushed his cigarette and left. Francisca swallowed. Not toolkit. That meant pliers, blowtorch, things that left permanent marks. She had maybe 10 minutes. She started counting the guards again. Yunj's car pulled into the industrial district just after 10 a.m. The streets were empty. Most of the warehouses had been abandoned after the port expansion moved south. Perfect place to hide someone. He parked 2 blocks away. No backup, no phone, just the gun and Lena's drawing, now folded in his pocket. He moved through the alleys like a shadow. Warehouse 14B sat at the end of a gravel lot. 2 stories, corrugated metal siding, loading docks on the east side, exactly like the drawing. Yunj approached from the west. No guards outside. That was wrong. Rowe always posted sentries, unless he wanted someone to walk in. Yunj stopped. He scanned the rooftops. Nothing. The windows. Dark. He pulled out the gun and moved toward the side entrance. The door was unlocked. Another red flag. He pushed it open slowly. The interior was dim. Shafts of light cut through gaps in the metal walls. Stacks of shipping pallets, forklifts, oil stains on the floor. And then he heard it. A voice. Calm. Female. I already told you I don't have access. Francisca. Yunj moved toward the sound, through a corridor of crates, past an office with shattered glass, and then he saw her, sitting in the center of the warehouse floor, surrounded by 5 men. Ro stood when Yunj stepped into view. Right on time. Yunj didn't lower the gun. Let her go. No. This doesn't concern you. It does now. Ro smiled. You really came alone? I don't need help. That's what I was counting on. A sound behind him. Yunj turned. 6 more men stepped out from behind the pallets, guns drawn. He was surrounded. Ro lit a cigarette. You should have stayed out of this, Quan. This wasn't your fight. You took a child's mother. I took a resource. You made it personal. Yunj's finger tightened on the trigger, but he didn't fire. Not yet. Francisca's eyes met his. She gave the smallest shake of her head. Wait. Ro took a drag. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to put the gun down, walk out, forget you ever saw her, and maybe I let the girl live. You don't have the girl. Ro's smile widened. Don't I? He nodded to one of his men. The man pulled out a phone, held it up. Live feed. The back room. Empty. The cot overturned. The blanket on the floor. Yunj's blood went cold. Where is she? Somewhere safe, for now. If you hurt her. Then what? You'll kill me? You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Yunj's jaw clenched. He looked at Francisca. She was staring at the phone, at the empty room. Her breathing was steady, but her hands were shaking. Then she spoke, quiet, directed at Yunj. The crane. Ro frowned. What? The loading crane, she said louder. It's on a timer, shifts every 15 minutes. Yunj understood immediately. He looked up. Above them, suspended on rails, was a massive gantry crane used for moving shipping containers. It was positioned directly over Ro's men. Francisca's eyes flicked to a control panel on the wall, 20 feet away. Yunj didn't hesitate. He fired. Not at Ro, at the panel. Sparks exploded. The crane's emergency release triggered. A 2-ton container dropped. Men scattered, shouting, chaos. Yunj ran, grabbed Francisca's chair and dragged her behind a forklift. Gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through metal. He pulled a knife from his belt and cut her restraints. She rubbed her wrists. You're insane! You're welcome. They have my daughter. No, they don't. She stared at him. What? The feed was old. Look at the lighting. She glanced at the phone, now lying on the ground. The image showed morning light. It was afternoon now. They're bluffing, Yunj said. You sure? No. Another spray of bullets. Francisca grabbed a length of chain from the floor. Then we better move fast. They ran, through smoke and sparks, toward the loading docks. Behind them, Ro screamed orders, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of the crane collapsing, metal screeching, concrete cracking, and somewhere, far away, a phone rang, unanswered. They made it to the docks before the shooting stopped. Yunj's shoulder burned where a bullet had grazed him, not deep, but enough that his shirt was wet. Francisca moved beside him without limping despite the beating she'd taken. Trained, controlled, just like her daughter. They crouched behind a shipping container marked with faded Korean characters. We need a car, Francisca said. 2 blocks east, black sedan. Keys? Yunj reached into his jacket. His phone was shattered. Screen cracked in 3 places, but the keys were there. He handed them over. You drive. Where? Back to the club. Your daughter's there. Francisca grabbed his arm, hard. You said you weren't sure. I wasn't, but Ro doesn't have the manpower to hit 2 locations at once. It was a bluff. And if it wasn't? Yunj met her eyes. Then we're already too late. She held his gaze for 3 seconds, then released him. Let's go. They ran. The car was where he'd left. Francisca slid into the driver's seat, started the engine. Yunj barely got the door closed before she accelerated. They drove in silence for 2 minutes. Then she spoke. Why did you help me? You sent your daughter to me. That's not an answer. Yunj pressed a hand against his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers. I had a sister, he said quietly. Francisca glanced at him. Had? She was 9. I was 17. There was a deal. Weapons exchange at the Incheon docks. My father brought her because he thought it would look less suspicious. A family outing. He paused. The buyers didn't care. They wanted the weapons. They didn't want witnesses. Francisca's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. They killed her? My father tried to use her as leverage, held her in front of him like a shield, told them they'd have to go through her to get to him. And they did. Yunj nodded. 3 bullets, center mass. She was dead before she hit the ground. Francisca said nothing. I made a rule after that, Yunj continued. No children, ever. Not in my clubs, not in my operations, not anywhere near my business. But you broke it. She walked into my club bleeding and asked for help. So did a lot of people, I'm guessing. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just asked. Francisca turned onto the highway. Lena's like that, calm when she shouldn't be. I trained her that way. Why? Because the world doesn't care if you're scared. It only cares if you survive. Yunj looked out the window. Seoul blurred past. Towers, lights, life continuing like nothing had happened. You knew this was coming, he said. I suspected. Why didn't you run? Because running only works if you have somewhere to go. I don't. Family? Dead. Parents died in a car accident when Lena was 2. No siblings, no relatives I'd trust. The father? Francisca's expression hardened. Not in the picture. Never was. Yunj didn't push. They drove another mile. Then Francisca spoke again. The warehouse. You knew about the crane. No, you did. I gave you a shot. You took it without hesitation. You gave me a chance. I don't waste those. She almost smiled. Almost. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? A monster. And now? She looked at him. I don't know yet. The club was dark when they arrived. Every light off. Yunj's instincts screamed. Stay in the car, he said. Not a chance. Francisca, that's my daughter in there. He didn't argue. They approached the side entrance together. The door was ajar, unlocked. Yunj drew his gun. Francisca picked up a piece of rebar from the alley. They moved inside. The lounge was empty. Chairs overturned, glasses shattered on the floor. A fight had happened here. Recently. Yunj's chest tightened. They moved toward the back room. The hallway was too quiet. No guards, no voices. Nothing. Yunj reached the door. It was closed. He pressed his ear against it. Silence. He looked at Francisca. She nodded. He kicked the door open. The room was empty. The cot flipped, the blanket torn, and on the wall, written in something dark. You left her unguarded. Francisca's breath caught. No. Yunj stepped closer. The writing was fresh, still wet, not blood, paint. He touched it. His phone, the shattered one, buzzed in his pocket. Impossible. He pulled it out. The screen flickered. One message, video file. He opened it. The footage showed a van, night vision, grainy. 2 men dragging a small figure toward the back doors. Lena. She wasn't fighting, just staring at the camera, like she knew someone would watch this. The timestamp read 11 minutes ago. Francisca grabbed the phone, watched it. Her hands shook. Then she threw it against the wall. It shattered completely. Where? She whispered. I don't know. You said she was safe. I thought. You thought? Her voice cracked. Yunj said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. He'd been wrong. And now a child was gone. Francisca sank against the wall. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked broken. She's 7 years old. Yunj's jaw clenched. I'll find her. You said that about me. And I did. This is different. No, it's not. Francisca looked up at him. Tears streaked her face, but her voice was steel. If she dies because of this, because of you, she won't. You don't know that. I do. How? Yunj crouched in front of her. Because they didn't kill her, they took her. That means they want something. And as long as they want something, she's alive. For how long? He didn't answer, because he didn't know. Behind them, footsteps. Yunj spun, gun raised. Seok-jun stood in the doorway. His face was pale. Sir, we need to talk. Where were you? I was following orders. What orders? Seok-jun hesitated. Then he held up his phone. On the screen was a message from Yunj's private line. Clear the building. Move the girl to secondary location. Wait for my signal. Yunj's blood turned to ice. I didn't send that. Seok-jun's expression didn't change. I know. Then why did you follow it? Because the alternative was believing someone had access to your encrypted line. Francisca stood. Where did you move her? Seok-jun looked at Eunjae, not her. The dockyard, berth 7, warehouse under your name. Eunjae's stomach dropped. When? 30 minutes ago. Who did you send with her? Minjun and Tae-hwan. Call them. I did. No answer. Francisca grabbed Seok-jun by the collar. Then we go, now. He didn't resist, just looked at Yunjae, waiting. Eunjae holstered his gun. Get the car. The dockyard was darker than the warehouse had been. No streetlights here. Just the distant glow of container ships and the occasional sweep of a security spotlight. Francisca drove with her headlights off. Seok-jun sat in the back, phone pressed to his ear. Still no answer. Berth 7 was at the far end of the port. Industrial zone. Minimal traffic after sunset. Eunjae scanned the approach. 2 access roads. Chain link fencing. Guard booth abandoned. Too quiet. Stop here, he said. Francisca braked 50 meters from the warehouse entrance. They sat in darkness, listening. The only sound was water lapping against concrete and the distant hum of machinery. They're waiting, Seok-jun said. I know. This is a kill box. I know. Francisca turned to face them both. I don't care what it is. My daughter's in there. Yunjae met her eyes. We go in smart or we don't go in at all. Then tell me the smart play. He pointed to the roofline. Ventilation shafts on the north side. You're small enough to fit. And you? Front entrance. Draw their attention. That's suicide. That's distraction. Seok-jun leaned forward. What about me? Eunjae handed him the car keys. Engine running, back exit. When she comes out with the girl, you drive. Don't wait for me. Sir? That's an order. Seok-jun's jaw worked, but he nodded. Francisca was already opening her door. How long do I have? 3 minutes after I go in, not more. And if you're already dead, then you get her out anyway. She held his gaze. Then she was gone, moving through shadows like she'd done this before. Maybe she had. Eunjae watched her disappear around the building's edge. Then he checked his gun. 4 rounds left. Not enough. Never enough. He stepped out of the car. Seok-jun grabbed his arm. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nothing ever is. I should have verified the message. You followed protocol. Someone broke it. Who? Eunjae. Pulled free. We'll find out. He walked toward the entrance. The loading bay door was open, just wide enough for a man to slip through. An invitation. Eunjae accepted it. Inside, the warehouse stretched into blackness. Shipping containers stacked 3 high. Shadows layered on shadows. His footsteps echoed on concrete. Then a voice. I wasn't sure you'd come. Eunjae stopped. The voice came from above. He looked up. Seok-jun stood on a catwalk 20 feet overhead. Not the Seok-jun in the car, the real one. Eunjae's chest tightened. How long? He asked quietly. 6 months. Why? Because you stopped caring about the business. You built an empire and then you hid from it. So you sold me out. I gave Ro what he wanted. Access, roots, territory, things you were too distracted to protect. And the girl? Seok-jun's expression didn't change. Leverage, nothing more. Where is she? Close. Movement to Eunjae's left. He turned. Lena stepped into the light. Unharmed, but her hands were bound with rope. A man stood behind her, gun pressed to her back. Lena's eyes found Yunjae. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just watched. Let her go, Yunjae said. Give me your gun first. No. Then she dies. Eunjae raised the weapon, pointed it at Seok-jun. You shoot me, he shoots her, Seok-jun said calmly. You shoot him, I shoot you. Either way, she's dead. Unless I'm faster. You're not. Silence. Eunjae's finger rested on the trigger. 1 shot, 1 chance, then a sound, metal scraping. From above. The ventilation shaft. Seok-jun looked up, too late. Francisca dropped through the opening, landed on the catwalk behind him, swung the rebar. It connected with his skull. He went down. The man holding Lena turned. Eunjae fired. Single shot. Center mass. The man collapsed. Lena ran. Eunjae caught her, pulled her close. She was shaking now. Finally. I've got you, he said. Francisca dropped from the catwalk, landed hard but stayed upright. She grabbed Lena, checked her over. Are you hurt? Lena shook her head. Francisca looked at Yunj. We need to move. Agreed. They turned toward the exit. The loading bay door slammed shut. Lights flooded the warehouse. 20 men stepped out from behind the containers, all armed, and at the center stood Chairman Rowe, smiling. Did you really think it would be that easy? Yunj pushed Lena behind him. Francisca moved beside him, back to back, surrounded. Rowe walked closer. You cost me a warehouse, 6 men, and a very profitable arrangement. You took a child. I took insurance. You made a mistake. Did I? Rowe stopped 10 feet away. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. So here's what happens next. You give me the girl. I give you a 5-minute head start. You run, you disappear. You never come back to Seoul. No. Then you all die here. Yunjae's hand tightened on the gun. 3 rounds, 20 men. The math didn't work. But he didn't lower the weapon. Francisca leaned close, whispered, The crane controls, northwest corner, red panel. Yunjae's eyes flicked right, saw it, 30 feet away. Can you reach it? If you cover me. I have 3 bullets. Then make them count. She moved, fast. Yunj fired, not at Rowe, at the lights. Darkness exploded, shouting, gunfire. Muzzle flashes lit the warehouse in strobes. Francisca ran, reached the panel, slammed her fist against the emergency release. The overhead crane roared to life. Containers shifted, cables snapped, tons of steel swung through the air. Men scattered, screaming. Yunj grabbed Lena and ran. Francisca was already at the side exit, kicking it open. They burst into the night. Behind them, the warehouse groaned, metal shrieked, then silence. They didn't stop running until they reached the car. The Seokjun from earlier, the decoy, was gone, but the keys were in the ignition. Francisca started the engine. Lena sat in the back, staring at nothing. Yunj got in. His shoulder was bleeding again. His ears rang. But they were alive. Francisca floored it. They drove, past the docks, past the warehouses, into Seoul's neon glow. Only then did Lena speak. Is it over? Yunj looked back at her. Not yet. Because somewhere in the city, sirens were already screaming, and Detective Baek had been watching the dockyard for months, waiting for exactly this. They pulled into an underground garage in Gangnam 20 minutes later. Private, secured, one of Yunjae's properties that even Seokjun hadn't known about. Francisca killed the engine. For a moment, no one moved. Then Lena unbuckled her seatbelt. I need to use the bathroom. Francisca turned. Can you wait? No. Yunj pointed to a door marked with a restroom symbol. Lena got out and walked toward it. Her steps were steady. Too steady. The door closed behind her. Francisca exhaled, long, shaky. She's in shock, Yunj said. I know. It'll hit her later. I know. Francisca leaned her head against the steering wheel. Thank you. Yunj said nothing. I mean it. You didn't have to help us. Yes, I did. She lifted her head, looked at him. Why? Because she asked. That's not enough of a reason to risk everything. Yunj touched the tattoo on his collarbone, the broken compass. Sometimes it is. The police arrived 30 minutes. After that, 3 cars, lights flashing. Detective Beck stepped out first. Mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He'd been chasing Yunj for 3 years. Tonight, he finally had him. Yunj stood in the garage entrance with his hands visible. No weapon, no resistance. Beck approached slowly. Kwon Yunj, you're under arrest for conspiracy, arms trafficking, and accessory to kidnapping. I didn't kidnap anyone. Tell it to the judge. 2 officers moved forward with handcuffs. Then Francisca stepped out from the shadows. Wait. Beck frowned. Who are you? Francisca Hale, the woman who was actually kidnapped. Ma'am, we'll take your statement at the station. No, you'll take it now. She pulled out her phone. Not broken like Yunjae's. She'd recorded everything. The warehouse, Rose's demands, the confession from Seokjun, all of it. Baek listened to 30 seconds of audio. His expression changed. Where did you get this? I was there, so was he. She nodded at Yunj. He saved my daughter's life. That doesn't erase his other crimes. Maybe not. But it gives you something bigger. Chairman Rowe, the port smuggling network, corrupted inspectors, everything you've been trying to prove for years. Beck's jaw tightened. In exchange for what? You let him go. Tonight. Absolutely not. Francisca stepped closer. Detective, I'm a logistics analyst. I've worked for 3 shipping companies in 2 years. I know which routes are dirty, which officials take bribes, which warehouses store illegal goods. I can give you all of it. Names, dates, locations, enough to dismantle half the smuggling operations in Seoul. And if I refuse, then this recording disappears, and you go back to chasing shadows. Beck looked at Yunj, then back at Francisca. You're protecting a criminal. I'm protecting the man who protected my child. Silence. Beck pulled out his own phone, made a call, spoke in low tones for 2 minutes. Then he hung up. You have 48 hours to deliver everything you promised. If you don't, I come for both of you. Francisca nodded. Beck turned to Yunj. This isn't over. I know. One day you'll slip, and I'll be there. I'm counting on it. Beck walked back to his car. The officers followed. They left. Yunj and Francisca stood in the garage, alone except for the fluorescent hum. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, I did. Why? She smiled slightly. Because you asked. 3 days later, Francisca and Lena were at Incheon Airport. 2 tickets to Atlanta, one way. Lena carried a small backpack with cartoon stars on it, the same one she'd worn the night she walked into the club. Francisca checked their boarding passes. Gate 12, boarding in 40 minutes. They sat in the waiting area. Lena stared out the window at the planes. Are we ever coming back? She asked. I don't know. Do you want to? Francisca considered that. No. Me neither. They sat in silence. Then Lena reached into her pocket, pulled out the bracelet, red and yellow woven thread. I forgot to give this to you, she said. Francisca took it. You made this for my birthday. Yeah. My birthday was 4 months ago. I know, but you were always too busy. Francisca's throat tightened. She tied the bracelet around her wrist. Thank you. Lena nodded. Then she pulled out something else. A second bracelet, identical. I made 2, she said. Can you give the other one to him? To who? The man with the tattoo. Francisca looked at the bracelet. Why? So he doesn't forget. Forget what? Lena looked up at her. That he's not scary. Not really. Yunj received the package 5 days later. Small box, no return address. Inside was a bracelet and a note. So you don't forget. Nothing else. He turned the bracelet over in his hands. Simple, handmade. The kind of thing a child makes when they have too much time and not enough words. He set it on his desk, next to the files, the ledgers, the maps of a city he controlled but never owned. Outside, Seoul continued. Deals were made, territory shifted, the world turned. But in his office, Yunj sat alone. And for the first time in years, he thought about the sister he'd lost, the rule he'd made, and the girl who'd broken it. He picked up the bracelet, tied it around his wrist. It didn't match his suit, didn't fit his image, but he didn't take it off, because some things were worth remembering, even if they hurt, especially if they hurt. 2 months later, Detective Baek closed 4 major smuggling cases. Arrests were made, warehouses seized, the port cleaned up, not entirely, but enough. Yunj's name appeared in none of the reports, but Beck knew. And Yunj knew he knew. The game continued, just with new rules, and somewhere in Atlanta, a woman and her daughter started over. New apartment, new school, new life. Lena still drew maps, still memorized exits, but now she also drew other things, flowers, animals, her mother smiling. And sometimes, late at night, she wondered about the man with the broken compass on his chest, whether he was okay, whether he remembered. Francisca never asked, but she saw the drawing Lena made, a man in a black suit, standing alone in a room full of shadows, wearing a bracelet of red and yellow thread. She didn't throw it away. She kept it in a box under her bed, next to other things worth saving, memories that hurt, and promises that lasted. In Seoul, the city feared Yunj Kwon. They always had. They always would. But one small girl had taught him something the city never could. That power wasn't about control. It was about choice. And sometimes, the hardest choice was the right one, even when it cost everything. Especially then. He looked at the bracelet on his wrist, thought about a child who'd asked for help, and a mother who'd taught her daughter to survive. Then he returned to his work, because the city didn't stop, and neither did he. But now, when children appeared in his clubs by accident, lost, scared, alone, he didn't turn them away. He found their parents, got them home, made sure they were safe. The rule hadn't changed, but he had, and that was enough. The city feared him, but one child taught him where the line really was. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Would you have helped Lena? And if you want more stories like this, stories about unlikely heroes and impossible choices, subscribe and hit the bell button.